to explain for Amendment 13, or 14.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Hager, thank you for your fine work on this bill. This is a straightforward amendment. I'd like to add a ban on using credit scoring when issuing insurance rates. The use of credit scores by insurance companies is unfair, and it disproportionately affects certain groups of people, minorities, low-income consumers, as well as widows and divorcees. The Center for Economic Justice said in 2004 in an article that credit scoring leaves out the human equation. For example, a widow whose husband paid all the family bills on time but did so in his name. That means that the wife has no actual credit history and so gets a bad credit score. Credit scoring should not be used as a rating factor for property and casualty insurance. Having a low credit score does not make it more likely that a policyholder will make an insurance claim. According to a February 2009 Hill Research Survey, 69% of Texas homeowners supported change to neutral review, which would prohibit companies from using credit scoring when deciding rates. At least 5 other states in this country have enacted similar measures, and I would appreciate your vote on this. I don't want to guess the vote, but this is one members you ought to listen to real closely. If one of you, God forbid, were to leave us a little early, your spouse ought to not have a higher insurance rate because the insurance company is using credit scoring when your spouse had nothing to do with whether you paid the bills or didn't pay the bills. Or if you happen to have paid them on time, like most of you fine senators do, your spouse ought to not be penalized because she or he did not have to pay the bills and did not have credit in their name. Now, look, there's been a lot of talk today when some of these amendments have come up about traditions. Need I remind any of you that some traditions were changed the first day we walked in here and came on the floor of the Senate. Sometimes people use this notion of tradition as a convenient way of not simply making a decision on whether they agree with something or not. I would encourage you, if you agree with me, vote with me. If you don't agree with me, then just say you don't agree and vote on the basis of that. The harsh reality is that the insurance industry in Texas historically has gone hog wild. And that's why our rates are so high, and that is the simple reason they've gotten along with it for so long. All of us know who had the most influence through the sunset process. And it hadn't been folk on this floor. So I would encourage you to just listen to your conscience. Don't leave your poor grandmother, or your mother, your father out there being preyed on by some insurance company because they're so trifling. They can't find some legitimate way of determining whether or not somebody ought to get coverage and what their rate ought to be. This credit scoring business is awful, and we ought to ban it. And I would move adoption of the amendment. Voice vote by adoption, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Ellis. Senator Frazier, for what purpose?
Would the gentleman yield?
Will Senator Ellis yield to Senator Frazier?
Gladly.
Just a clarification here. I'd listened to your description, and I think I agree with you that if someone is being abused by credit scoring, we shouldn't allow that. But it's also, this is something we spent a lot of time discussing 4 years ago. We did Senate Bill 14, and the way we would do this and the way we address this is putting some collars, and we address the way the Department of Insurance would address this, and it, we outlined how it would be, and I think totally prohibiting would outdo a lot of work that we did, and I just disagree that is the answer, that it is something we've addressed a lot, and I think what you're suggesting here would undo a lot of work we've done.
Well, Senator, it's a real simple proposition. I want to ban it because what we did several years ago just didn't work. Now, as an example, I want to read you an email that I got from someone whose judgment I value. My 87-year-old dad does not have any bills, does not have any debt. You may know the story well. I told you, last car he had, he paid for it cash. There's no debt. That's just the way this elderly person, constituent of mine lives. Now, this is a note that my sister got from his insurance agent the other day, Melody. Once the credit was run, Your father's quote increased. Attached is the adjusted amount. Please let me know if you would like to continue with this policy. I mean, now here's a guy, you know, with cash in the bank. I mean, so he doesn't have his light bill in his name anymore because, to be honest with you, there are days when he doesn't know if the lights are on or off. He doesn't have control of his checking account. None of his checks are bouncing because somebody else is controlling his money. And that's just a perfect example, Mr. Chairman, how what we did, I voted for it. I had reservations about it then. Other states just banned it. I listened to the industry come in with all of their, you know, heartache stories about how difficult it would be assessing the risk. I'm just telling you, Troy, it's just not right. These insurance companies are smart, and they always win. And this ought to be one time we ought not let them win using this method.
And as I told you when we discussed it the other day, we addressed this, and these type things, I agree with you, they shouldn't be using. And if they did that, you've got an appeal to the Department of Insurance. This company should be reporting for what they've done. That I agree with you, they shouldn't have done that. But that also was covered under the parameters we set up for credit scoring.
Well, now, of course, for somebody like you and I mean, I did send this email to the insurance commissioner just asking, is this supposed to work this way? But for the average working class consumer, they would not take the time to go through that effort. You know, hire a lawyer. Somebody like you or I could call and do that, but the average person wouldn't do it. So I just encourage members to vote their conscience on this one. And your constituents will certainly appreciate it. And I'll be even more than happy to take a voice vote so nobody will have a record and have anybody mad.
The chair recognizes Senator Hager on floor amendment 14.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, as all of you know, credit scoring and or credit information cannot be used to unfairly discriminate, deny, cancel, or renew a policy solely for basis of credit. That is current law in Texas, thanks to provisions and hard work of a lot of members here on the Senate floor back in 2003 with Senate Bill 14. Also, credit scoring has been studied over and over again. When Lieutenant Governor Ratliff was commissioned a study with UT, and also Texas legislature required TDI to conduct additional studies in 04 and 05. Both studies concluded credit scoring is a good predictor of risk. Commissioner Montemayor, a very harsh critic of credit scoring, in his last report to the legislature in 2005 in that legislative session said, quote, the study, however, did not support those initial suspicions. The Federal Trade Commission in July of 07 also mentioned that credit scoring are effective risk predictors of risk. And I would just say, Senator Ellis, as your true twin in the fight here in the Senate on many issues, it shall not be discriminatory. It shall not in any form, fashion, discriminate against people. But I think your ban goes in a direction that is going to cause a lot of disruption in the market, and it's going to harm a lot of people who worked very hard to have good credit scoring. So with all due respect, Senator, I'm going to have to move to table floor amendment number 14.
Thank you, Senator Hager. The chair recognizes Senator Ellis on the motion to table.
Mr. President, members, I would encourage you to vote against the a motion to table. 6 states currently have statutes that forbid or limit the use of credit scoring in some or all types of insurance. In 2008, 26 states had proposals to do it. Only a couple of them were able to pass it because it's a fierce issue that a lot of money is put up on the other side by the insurance industry to fight it. In 2009, 16 states have legislation very similar to what I'm trying to do in this amendment that I'm trying to pass. I would just say to you that we have not overcome the discriminatory impacts of credit scoring. We ought to ban it, and I want to encourage you to vote your consciences, and your constituents will appreciate it. So I'd encourage you to vote no on the motion to table this fine amendment.
Members, you've heard the motion by Senator Hager, opposed by Senator Ellis. The Secretary will call a roll.
Averitt, Corona, Davis, Duell, Duncan, Ellis, Eltife, Estes, Frazier, Gallegos, Harris, Hager, Hinojosa, Huffman, Jackson, Lucio, Nelson, Nichols, Ogden, Patrick, Seliger, Shapiro, Shapley, Uresti, Van de Putte, Watson, Wentworth, West, Whitmire, Williams, and Zaffarini.
Can I guess the vote, Mr. President?
There being 19 ayes, no, there being 18 ayes and 12 nays, the motion to table is sustained.